So as we've seen, the Chinese automakers for electric vehicles have been absolutely dominating in China. But make no mistakes about it, the ultimate vision is for Chinese automakers to conquer the world. We've seen BYD make beachheads in Europe recently, and the breaking news today is that BYD has chosen Hungary as its first factory in Europe. We're going to explore some statistics and some news about the trade tariffs that might be coming to prevent the Chinese to getting into Europe, and that's why they're setting up factories. We've got Jan from Tesla Fix. He has his own YouTube channel, and he's going to give us kind of a background on what's happening with these Chinese automakers as they try to create beachheads in Europe. Welcome, Jan.
Hi, Herbert. Thanks for having me again. And yeah, this topic is super interesting. Of course, again, for the European market, a huge deal. And also for the German ICE manufacturers, I can talk about that
right.
as well. So
it's a big deal. Yeah. So this is very interesting. BYD is opening up a factory in Europe, Europe's first factory establishment. They think that the plant will be built as quickly as the German plant built by Tesla in 2 years. And the BYD spokesperson noted that the decision will be announced before the end of this year. This is, I guess, their announcements. So a couple slides I wanted to show. One is, this is from S&P Global, and it's talking about how fast these Chinese automakers are growing globally. So let's look at them one by one here. The blue is all the Chinese makers, so it combined together, the China proprietary electric vehicle makers. And you can see that they're now grown from 41% in 2018 to 50% gaining traction. The yellow is German brands, and they're kind of staying flat, not growing very well. This is globally. And then, of course, the other Japanese brands and so forth have losing some market share in others. So we already know this. We already know that the Chinese automakers are starting to grow. They're mostly growing in their own country, and they're starting to just create beachheads. So this is really more of a reflection of what they're doing in their own country than it is anything. And then we know that BYD is one of the leaders of Chinese EV. And here they're showing that this is the total electric vehicles per share. I think that this is not just BEVs. This is everything put together. And you can see that, yeah, Tesla is next compared to BYD. Again, total shares. We already know that. This is the thing I wanted to ask you, though, Jan. So this S&P Global showed that while China automakers are trying to go export their cars, and it's been growing. So that's the green bar here in 2021. Let me just throw this one here. The green bar, 2021, it's growing. That's the green bar. But look what happens in 2024. S&P Global predicts that there's going to be zero sales of Chinese auto brands in Europe. And the reason is because they think that this anti-subsidy probe that's being announced by Europe on EVs, that's just starting to gain traction. It's going to be launched soon. And they think that that's going to hinder the Chinese to be able to export to Europe. And so that's why they made this announcement to actually create their own factory in Europe. Can you just tell us your perspective of what's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty interesting what's happening in the European market in that sense, because the German car, I would say this news was more or less lobbied by the German car manufacturers, I would say. Like this type of news from the EU. You could really feel that because, of course, the German legacy car manufacturers lost market share in China significantly. They can't keep up with software development. For the Chinese customer, the German car is to last century, like from the perspective of software. I mean, whereas the Frank, for example, also features that they really like. So they lost much market share, especially in the EV space, of course. Now they have the problem of Chinese car manufacturers coming to the European market, as well as, of course, the French also fear the Chinese car manufacturers. You could really see that in the International Auto Show in Munich that was recently here in Germany, that suddenly the German car manufacturers realized, wait a second, okay, China, they're here right now. BYD had one of the biggest booths in the whole auto show, right next to VW actually, and German car manufacturers actually noticed, and I think China could really take up much market share together with Tesla in the European EV space or car market, EV car market. and take more and more market share there. And that's what they feared. That's why I think they want to do that. And now, of course, BYD sees that and sees that there's a development there, that they're going to maybe stagnate the import of Chinese cars. What will happen? Localization will happen. Because if BYD puts their manufacturing or localizes their manufacturing like Tesla did with the Giga Berlin factory, then they can put tariffs on the Chinese imports as they want because they're going to produce locally in Europe. That's why it's such an interesting strategy that BYD is doing, and they are just following Tesla in that sense. And I think it's the right decision, because do I share the sentiment that this will make the imports of Chinese cars to zero? I wouldn't say so, because there are still some political developments inside also the car companies. For example, Mercedes, who are they partnering with to produce EVs? Geely. What an interesting fact. And other car manufacturers actually partner as well with Chinese companies. VW announced that they're going to partner with, who guessed it, Huawei to make software, actually. That's what they said. So will they pull this card and say, they kind of in this ambivalent state, they kind of want the Chinese help, but don't want the Chinese in their market as a competitor. So it's a push and pull thing. I don't think it's going to go to zero, but BYD opening up shop here secures their hub to export to the, or produce locally.
Well, yeah, that is a very, very good point. Right. So we know that the German automakers, the European automakers are struggling mightily to sell in China. They're struggling to create their software. They're struggling to create electric vehicles. And so we've just reported last month, like you just listed out, 3 to 5 different European automakers making deals, investing in Chinese automakers. You listed a few out. Most recently, I think it was Volkswagen partnering with Huawei, but they also partner with Xiaopeng.
XPeng.
And
Xiaopeng, yeah.
They own 5% of the company, and they're selling not only with Huawei, they're selling the cars. There's a new one with a very small Chinese automaker. I just reported recently, I can't remember the name. Volkswagen partnered with them, and basically that Chinese automaker can create their cars and sell it in China, but then Volkswagen has the right for any exports globally. So your point being that all of these, many of these automakers are partnering with the Chinese. So now it muddles it, right? Will you now prevent them, Volkswagen, from exporting cars made in China to Europe? Because they need the help. But this idea that BYD opened up in Hungary, what's your reason, do you think, that they chose Hungary of all places in Europe? Because we've been speculating, Tesla did it in Berlin. You and I just did a show talking about Tesla creating a holding company in Spain. Why did BYD choose Hungary?
So I think they chose Hungary. Also from the political side, Hungary is an outlier inside of the EU. They're much more conservative, if not, they kind of carved out the democracy more or less a little bit. So they're more on the political side of China. I think they're going to have better deals there, I could see. So that's a bold statement, but I will stick to that as well. But I also see that, of course, Hungary is a lower wage country because it's in Eastern Europe. Overall, Eastern Europe is also more lower wage in Poland, for example. And also there is an infrastructure already there, again, for car manufacturing, because, of course, VW also are producing in Eastern Europe. There are some parts of Eastern Europe they're going to produce, as well as Hungary as well. There are some suppliers already there. There is a supplier network already set up. So this means, it makes sense to locate it there. But they could really choose from the countries. But I think why Hungary? I would say because it's a little bit easier for the Chinese government or also for BYD to open the gates there a little bit more. I would say they're much more susceptible to the influence of China. You could say it like this. That's just a speculation. It's highly speculative, of course.
Right.
But that's my opinion on that. I could see that. But overall, in Eastern Europe, there is a supplier network, and in Hungary as well. So this makes sense. Yeah.
Another good point. Thank you, Jan. This is why I love talking to you. Because, maybe the Hungary is much more amenable to partnering with China, being more open to making deals, tax, all that kind of stuff, bring in business. They're more desperate for business. All those things you were saying earlier. They are manufacturing based.
Yeah, so from the political side, if you view Europe on the map, Hungary is not as close to the European Union as you would think. They're a little bit an outlier. That's what I mean. They have a little bit more leverage. I could see that they have more leverage or influence there. That's what I mean. Like, because Germany is pretty set, France is pretty set, Spain is pretty set, but there are some areas in Europe, especially in Eastern Europe, that they are a little unstable. But that's just speculation, like I said.
They're more desperate. Yeah. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com. Interesting. Well, they're not about to stop this. BYD is opening up a factory, and they're really making a big push. They're backed by the government. They're going to really try to go global. I just did a show with Nicholas Colas, and he thinks that the Chinese automakers will not be able to go global for a variety of reasons. This is one way they'll do it. Set up a shop. There's rumors now that 3 Chinese automakers are creating a factory in Mexico. And I don't know if those were just the suppliers for Tesla or there really are automakers that might start to form. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much, Jan. Appreciate your German perspective, Europe perspective. Follow him on YouTube at Tesla Fix. Thanks, Jan. Bye, everybody.
Thanks very much. See you soon.